and they started helping each other. They saw people would be close to hitting that goal and say, let me help you. How can I help you?
Wow. And that's where the magic happens.
It is.
Welcome to Franchise Leader Spotlight. I'm Katherine LeBlanc. This series highlights the leaders shaping franchising today, how they built their careers, what they're focused on now, and what they believe is coming next for the industry. Let's dive in. Brought to you by my podcast host. My conversation today is with Kathy George, who is president of Spherion Staffing and Recruiting. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm really excited to be your guest.
Well, I'm excited to have you here. I think that the world of staffing and recruiting it's one of those non-sexy franchises,
Yeah.
which I, am personally always interested in because it's those non-sexy brands that sometimes have the most profit power. And so I'm excited to jump in today with you.
Well, we love it.
Good. Okay. Well, we're going to start with what's going on in business today. What are the things that are keeping you up at night?
Well, I'll tell you a couple of things. One is technology adaptation. So we're having, with every other business out there right now, there's the use of AI, but also any sort of technology. And I have franchisees who we can't run fast enough for them.
Yeah.
But mostly I have franchisees who are wanting to take let me take a step back. Let me wait and see. Let me see how it works out for other people. So adapting to the use of technology, because it's a change, right? And it's a big change and it feels like it happens fast. That's really a big challenge. And it's funny because, you have other people who are saying, hey, we're going to be left behind. We got to move fast enough. So finding that balance and learning how to get them excited about technology is really key.
Well, and in my experience, technology changes you're explaining it exactly right? You have the people who are itching for the next big thing. And then you have the folks who are still working with what you have. The biggest challenge I see in the technology piece is that change management, is testing and learning the tool in the right amount of time and then rolling it out with a true rollout program. I'd love to hear about how Spherion manages those rollouts.
Well, that's a really interesting question, because I've learned that you have to bring the franchisees along from the very beginning. And the ones who are excited about it become your advocates. They test it, and it doesn't mean that we don't try. We actually try to, I always say, let's get the snipers out of the woods. So the ones who are going to be your biggest naysayers, let's bring them along as well in the very beginning, and they can be your most powerful advocates. So we really try to roll things out on a phased path of communication. First, explaining the need. Why do we need this? How will it help them? They don't really care as much about how it helps, us, but it's how will it help them? And, a lot of times, especially if it's going to lead to increased productivity, higher profitability for them, that's really the path that we take. But they might be thinking about their comfort level in utilizing it. So we provide a lot of training and hands-on, and use it and give us feedback. And what do you think? And that has really made a big difference for us. So we have franchisee-led committees when there are things like that. So we're like, we don't want to influence you. You guys talk about it. Come back. Give us some suggestions. What are the pluses you can see in this, or what are the negatives? What should we be prepared for?
Yeah.
That's really helped us, because we rolled out a new CRM in December, and months before we started building towards that, because we need to have 100% of adoption of this expensive tech.
That's right. Yeah.
But even now, it's using AI, for example. How do you use that?
Yeah. Well, and I love the saying, get the snipers out of the woods. I haven't heard that before. That's brilliant.
Yeah.
And tell me, how are you prioritizing the technology changes? You mentioned productivity, profitability. I led technology at one of the brands that I was with. And what I loved about leading that from a marketing perspective is that I prioritized revenue generating initiatives.
That's right.
Whereas, if marketing wasn't leading it, sometimes those productivity operations led initiatives get prioritized. How are you thinking about prioritizing your tech stack? Is those the questions you're asking?
Profitability is big. So last year, was it last year? Yeah, so beginning of last year, probably even the year before, we said, I'm going to focus on the pillars of growth. And profitable growth, really. So with mutual profitability, really, really wanted to make sure that our franchisees were profitable, that we had strong unit economics, right? And then evolution. We're an 80-year-old brand, and we want to go another 80 years. So
Mhm.
we have to evolve. We can't just wait and see. We can't have the world happening around us.
Mhm.
So growth, profitability, and evolution were sort of our key pillars. I included performance in there, and it sort of feeds the others as well, because we
Okay.
realized that we that was another challenge. We had franchisees who wanted to be super, have a lot of autonomy, but not standardization, right? They weren't following our
Okay. Yes.
standards. So that sort of that was another challenge. I took a
Yeah.
step back. Well, in order to feed growth and for their own profitability, we needed to have increased sales. We have become very, very service oriented
Okay.
and not sales oriented. So we do prioritize the things that are going to drive our sales first,
Mhm.
and which is why in our tech stack, we looked at our CRM first so we can manage how
Yes.
visibility, more
Yeah.
uniform visibility
Mhm.
into how we might be able to help our franchisees and to grow.
Yeah, and some of the conversations that I'm having with marketers is around, the changing landscape around new customer acquisition is very difficult to navigate, and
Right.
costs are going up across the board. And so while working on that is important, moving the conversation to conversion, to how are you managing the leads that you are getting.
That's
So
right.
to your point, building out that technology, building out
Yeah.
a single CRM source of
Yeah.
truth.
This is the first
Yeah.
time that we have this level of visibility. Now, of
Mhm.
course, we have to
Mhm.
enforce usage of it. And that
Mhm.
really is where another big struggle comes in,
Yeah.
right? Is like, how do you get them to, how do you
Adoption.
enforce
Yeah.
it, right? How do you, first of all, want them to adopt it
Mhm.
before having to be, the heavy and,
Mhm.
have consequences? It's
Right.
really about letting them see that this benefits the whole brand.
Yeah. Yeah.
So those are the conversations, but having our franchisees involved in the
Mhm.
process, they're the ones driving the message as well. It's not just us. It's not us versus them. It's like
Mhm.
we need to do this together. We have a collective goal.
Yeah, and collaboration.
Exactly.
So I loved the pillars that you laid out. The focus is so important as a leader to bring to your team. How do you keep them focused? And I'm asking this kind of selfishly because in the brands that I've served and the brands that I work with, the bright and shiny
Yes.
chase is real. And saying no is often the biggest challenge that I see teams face.
Yes. We set a collective goal. So I actually set a collective 2-year goal. And this came from franchisees. I was talking to franchisees. What do you suggest? What do you think? And our
Hmm.
most tenured franchisees, as well as our newest. And someone mentioned to me, what would be nice if we had one collective goal? We each have our growth goals. It would be great if we have one
Yeah.
goal. And so this was probably right before, talking about maybe a day before I got up on stage at our national meeting last
Oh my
year.
gosh.
It was like the evening before I happened to have this conversation with this franchisee. And I get up and I say, here's our collective goal. And it's a 2-year goal. That means at the end of this first year, we need to be here. And the end of the second year, we'll be here. We will beat our competitors. And they love that. They love this
Yes.
collective goal. And we didn't make it complicated. We said, okay, every franchisee, if you could grow by this
Hmm.
much, this is where this is where we will be. And we we followed, trying to remember the 20-mile march. Have you ever heard of the 20-mile
No.
march?
Tell me more.
Yeah, so it is, and I'm gonna say this, I think it's Jim Collins, and, I'm trying to remember the name of the book, so bear with me. But we decided to go on this 20-mile march together, which is do not be distracted by what's going on out there. So whether it's socioeconomic, political, anything, it does not matter. If you get up every day and you do the
Hmm.
same steady pace, then you are not as impacted by conditions. So many times you have people who freeze, right? They're like,
Hmm.
oh, times are bad. They're excuses. Oh, how can you expect me to grow? I mean, everything's bad. You see what's going on out there. We
Hmm.
can't. We can't let that distract us. We
Hmm.
have to keep going. So you get up and you put in that 20 miles every day, no matter what. So it doesn't matter what's happening. Now, it's not the minimum. It's not a bare minimum. It's probably a little bit more than that, but you don't go too fast and then stop. You don't go too slow and then think you're going to catch up. It's a
Hmm.
steady pace.
Hmm.
Well, they love that analogy. And so every week we reported collectively, the whole community could see
Yes.
here's where we are
Right.
on our 20-mile march.
Hmm.
And we reinforced it. It became part of our dialogue.
Hmm. Hmm.
And so monthly calls with our franchisees, quarterly town halls with franchisees and their colleagues working for them,
Hmm.
weekly performance metrics. They could see where everyone was in meeting their goals. And they started helping each other. They saw people would be close to hitting that goal and say, let me help you. How can I help you?
Wow. And that's where the magic happens.
It is. And then as people started crossing the
Mhm.
threshold, we would spotlight them on our monthly calls and say, tell us, what are you doing that could help
Mhm.
others?
Mhm.
And it was just fantastic. So that really helped us. Otherwise, in a very tough year, right? It's very
Yes,
tough.
it is.
It gave us a common goal, and it was a steady march. And at the end of last year, we said, okay, our 20-mile march continues. It worked for us.
Mhm.
We outpaced our competitors. We outpaced our parent company in a time where everyone was saying this is what our industry was forecasted to
Mhm.
lose money. We grew. And so we beat the industry standards. And so they saw that it worked and it built that credibility.
Mhm.
This year, I might do it a little bit differently where I want the people who it is a struggle to meet that one
Yeah.
common goal.
Mhm.
I want them to have more of a shot. So we're going to stagger it a
Okay.
little bit. And the ones who are largest are okay with that. They said,
Yeah.
yes, we're happy to do more. And so we're balancing it so it
Okay.
feels even more exciting.
Well, Kathy, I'm inspired just hearing about this. And part of it is a lot of times, you have painted this picture of a path. You set
Yes.
this goal at a conference and then you have a follow-up every week, you have a follow-up every month, and everything is leading to it. Again, just inspired listening to you. I want to know, taking back through your career and your journey, what it has led you to understanding that this continuity of message and this focus of goal is really the way to galvanize the community.
I learned from so many people. I will say that it's a building block. It's no one thing. Now,
Mhm.
I'll tell you just personally in my journey, I came to the US. I was born in New York, and then I went back. And the first year of my life I was spent in the Caribbean in Trinidad. And so not just the first year I was in New York, and then the rest until I was a teenager, I lived in Trinidad. And coming to the US, all I saw was opportunity. And I came just to go to college. I said, I'm coming to college, I'll
Okay.
go back
Yeah.
home to Trinidad. And there was so much opportunity, and I never take that for granted. I'm a hard worker. And so, I think my experiences going through working really hard to put myself through college, I didn't know it was crazy to work at a full time job as a manager 40 hours a week and go to college full time. I had no idea. That
Isn't
was
that the best?
crazy.
What you don't know, you don't know.
Exactly. I literally went to college full time where other people may have had a part-time job. I had a
Mhm.
full-time job, and luckily there was flexibility in my hours, so I was able to do that. And so I've learned a lot along the way. But I've had some great mentors as well. And that's where I've really learned a lot as
Mhm.
well is I learn from others. And I think one of the biggest learnings for me when I stepped into this role is attending the CEO summits at the Franchise Leadership and Development Conference
Mhm.
in Atlanta in October.
Mhm.
I've been to the last two, and those have just been really, really instrumental. You have people who are willing to mentor you. And as you step into this role, that could be really lonely
Mhm.
sometimes. You don't have a
You don't have a
boss
peer.
telling you what to
Yeah.
do. Exactly. And my peers in my business are not running a franchise division. So it's a
Mhm.
completely different
Yeah.
language. And so that has been really, really helpful for me as well. And I just learn from them
Mhm.
and for others and say, okay, yeah, more about listening, more about collaborating and really clearly defining a path forward for everyone.
Is there a lesson that you didn't realize you were learning in your career? Can you think back on a moment that you came back to?
Um, I think communication, clear communication.
Okay.
I feel like at some stage in my career, I had very traditional managers where it was an us versus them, and you never told, you never shared enough. So it's very hard when you are working towards something common. If you don't really know what's the big picture,
Yeah.
what's the end goal, what's
Right.
the clear path forward, you might be working really, really hard and thinking you're making great. It's not in the right path.
Mhm.
So for me, I try with my team and including with my franchisees, I provided more visibility than they've ever had before,
Mhm.
more transparency,
Mhm.
you know. So I will talk about here's our goal. Here's where we are. Here's how we're perceived
Mhm.
by our parent company.
Mhm.
Here's what we need to do and rallying them together. And I think that transparency has really paid off. But that was a shift because it was a very traditional way of communication
Yeah.
before. It's like it's us against them, the franchisor versus the
Mhm.
franchisee. Don't let them know. They want to do right. They're investing in this. They're probably going to be here
Right.
longer than we all are,
Right.
them and their next generation.
That's right.
So we have to give that visibility and transparency. and then use them as advisors too. Let me know. Is there something I'm
Mhm.
not thinking about?
And I would also apply that to your team. I work with leaders a lot in my work, and the leaders believe that they are being transparent. And then the folks that are under them feel like, wait, I don't have all the information I need in order to make the best decision. And so there is and I think that what you're referencing, I'm very familiar with. It's kind of it is an old school, I'm going to protect the information. But the way I see it transpiring right now is that there's a thought process that I am transparent, but the reality is not really coming through. And so you have to have some intentionality
That's right.
behind it.
And so we do quarterly employee surveys, and it wasn't just my direct reports, but their direct reports. I pay attention, I read, I respond. And I thought we were being clear in the beginning on our
Mhm.
goals, but I think we weren't going down to the level enough. So also educating them, right? They were hearing it, but they didn't know what it meant. So put it
Okay.
in context of how does it meet their goals? How can
Mhm.
they contribute? So that continuous build on that, and like and I'm very transparent with them now about like, and this is how you fit in, the good and the bad, and this
Mhm.
is, oh, maybe this is a franchisee perspective, this is what you should think about. Our ratings have increased. So the feedback that we're getting is they really do feel like they understand, they have a clear picture, they know
Mhm.
our path forward, they know our challenges, they know how they contribute to it. So
Mhm.
yes, absolutely right. You can't have one without the other. It's
Yeah.
not just the franchisees, but it's your team.
Yeah.
And there's nothing that I'm hiding from anybody. So
Mhm.
I know that while I'm here at this conference and they're continuing running our business,
Mhm.
they have enough context to make the right decisions. They
Mhm.
don't need to say, they need to call me to
Yeah.
make a decision. They have enough context.
Man, I am really enjoying this conversation. What I'm taking away is clarity in message. And so that continuity helps with the clarity.
Yes,
You had a message at the conference, you had a framework of how you're going to follow through with that message. But then also the feedback loop, right? We talked about
that's
the
right.
franchisee
That's
community committees, we talked about the
mhm.
surveys that you're doing and your internal team. And so you're combining them both to really execute a reality of collaboration.
Yes. And the feedback loop is so important. I love that you
Mhm.
said that because it's not about trying to convince or overcome someone's feedback by that this is not working. I
Mm.
really want to know. Tell me
Mhm.
why. Can you explain or show me why?
Mhm.
What have you tried? Because sometimes there's something really legitimate there
Mhm.
that, and it,
Yeah.
the worst thing you can do is just try to convince them. Well, if you just tried it a little bit longer, or,
Mhm.
there's an assumption sometimes that they just don't understand or they don't get it. No,
Mhm.
you're utilizing it. You need to let us know what is your real concern and getting to that. And that really sometimes you do get to the point where it's just training or education, but the fact that you're willing to listen and you're not just trying to shut them
Yeah.
down is very, very important.
Look, I'm guilty of it.
Yeah,
If I'm launching something and it makes sense to me,
right.
I can get frustrated if it doesn't make sense to you.
Exactly.
And that feedback loop, like you said, if you take the moment to say, like, okay, let's get curious about
Yes.
why we're getting this feedback, it kind of
Yes.
shifts the mindset to it's not that they're pushing back on what we're doing. We just need to get curious about what the roadblock is.
That's exactly right.
Yeah,
Yes.
that makes sense. Well, I want to shift gears a little bit
Sure.
to where you think we're going. Where do you hope, or what do you hope we keep doing as a franchise industry?
Well, well, one of the things I love about our franchise industry is that you can have anyone like a delivery driver. I heard this yesterday that a delivery driver can become the largest franchisee in a
Hmm.
franchise concept. I
Yeah.
hope that never changes,
Yeah.
right? The opportunities that we provide to people. Uh,
I want to get into that. Wait, I want to stop you right there
yeah.
because I have so many conversations with CEOs and with founders around their avatars for their franchise. And the avatar that everyone lands on is not the delivery driver. It is somebody with business experience,
Right.
somebody with experience in this industry. And I push back because for me, just to your point, anyone can open a small business. And it's not about the experience that you're bringing to the table. And I'm curious what your take is, because for me, what I tell them is the difference is can you face adversity?
That's
And do
right.
you have the grit to do what it takes to be a small business owner? That's the factor that you're looking for. And I'd love to know what you
Absolutely.
think.
Absolutely. I mean, and again, it goes back to my perspective as someone coming from the
Hmm.
Caribbean, right? It's like a land of
Hmm.
opportunity. You're living the American dream.
Hmm.
You the fact that you're willing to work hard and you have that grit, and I call it hustle. I always like, if you have the
Yes.
hustle, I'd love to see that in our franchisee
Yeah.
prospects, right? That is really key. And that is, I think, the beauty of franchising is that you have people from a wide variety of backgrounds. I
Mhm.
don't believe that you have one size fits all.
Mhm.
And those are the people that, you see running and leading our largest
Mhm.
organizations. I think it is that those people, those individuals who are willing to work hard for their
Yeah.
families, for
Mhm.
themselves, and to see it pay off. And there's no dream too large for them,
Mhm. Yeah.
and for us. That is incredible. And I think being able to see that opportunity, I think franchising presents that opportunity to
Mhm.
people in a more accessible way.
Mhm.
You're in business for yourself, but not by yourself. That is so, so key. We hear it over and over again.
Yeah.
And that's really the core of what we do.
Yeah.
So I love that concept. When I always like to ask people, how did you get here? Like, what was
Mhm.
your background? Because it's just so varied. So
Mhm.
totally agree.
Yeah.
And that's what keeps you successful as well. At the end of the day,
Mhm.
it's that hard work, that grit, that
Mhm.
you could teach anybody anything,
Mhm.
any franchise
Yeah.
concept. You could
Yeah.
teach them, but you can't teach them that grit and that hustle
That's right.
and the
Mhm.
tenacity and the resilience to keep going when it knocks you down, because it
Yeah.
will.
Mhm. All right. So in one sentence, what does franchising need more of?
Um, I think we need more focus on the unit economics, strong unit
Mhm.
economics, and less focus on expansion just for the sake of expansion.
Mhm. Yeah. What do you think happens when we do that?
Well, because I think sometimes we're so focused on expansions that we don't have the right infrastructure to make people be successful.
Mhm.
We don't have the right support level. I mean, there's so many other things I could think of. That's just the top of my head
Yeah.
there. I really do think that there's so much focus on expansion right now, and it's not always in the best interest of the franchisees, or they're not set up to be successful
Yeah.
with that put up that headline, and we've grown by however many
Right.
units. I really think that real strong focus on strong unit
Mhm.
economics is key.
Yeah. So maybe flipping those franchise development headlines instead of
That's exactly it.
100 units.
You
Yeah.
have to flip it. One of the big things we're focusing on this year is investing in, not just investing in technology, but investing in our franchisee skills.
Okay.
That is really key for us this year as well. We have gaps.
Are there specific skill gaps? Or are you developing programs that kind of, broad strokes address all skill gaps?
Broad strokes. So not
Okay.
in, yeah, because some of it is very common, and then by their own admission as well, especially ones who've been doing it for a long time, and maybe they were really great as single unit
Mhm.
operators, but as they get bigger, they're not as
Mhm.
great with that. But financial literacy is huge right now. Business ownership skills, really, there's some
Mhm.
things there as well.
The teachable moments.
The teachable, yes.
Mhm.
And then just technology, making it comfortable for them, and
Mhm.
utilizing and embracing technology
Mhm.
and AI, and how it might be able to help them be profitable. That's really what we're doing as well.
Yeah. That sounds great.
Yeah, but that is that focus, because I want them to grow, but I want them to grow in a way that is sustainable.
Yeah, well, and it's a big shift going from single unit to multi-unit. It's a
Exactly.
completely different. You do have to broaden that skill set.
That's right.
And I think too, part of, you talked a little bit about the power of franchising and franchising being in business for yourself, not by yourself.
Yes.
And part of that is, look, we spend a lot of time at work. And so helping our franchisees build the
Yes.
business skill sets to reach their dreams, and
Yes.
not necessarily always focused on your specific industry. But like you said, financial literacy, managing people, expanding to new locations, those are skills that
Yeah.
sometimes franchisees need to learn on the job.
And this is probably opening up another can of worms, but some of my franchisees that have been expanding like that, now they want to bring their kids into it. And that's one of
Yes.
the biggest
Hmm.
challenges I have right now,
Hmm.
is how to, create a structure where the next generation franchisees are prepared. Because I
Okay.
have a lot of
Yeah.
kids of my franchisees who want to become franchisees right now, and they don't have the same skill sets. They
Hmm.
don't have the same grit. They don't have the same
Hmm.
experience that their parents had getting to this point.
Hmm.
And so trying to build a program which is slower than the path
Hmm.
that the parents envisioned for them, because
Okay.
now we have to get them there. But that is
That's interesting.
really, I have very large pockets of my business dependent on people who are not as experienced.
Right.
because I have people who are ready to retire and they want their kids to be ready to
Mhm.
take over this business. That's a big vulnerability
Mm.
for in our system, at least.
Well, and it's succession planning,
It is
right?
succession planning.
Well, and but how I guess I hear you on it being a bit of a challenge, but how wonderful that you've been able to support a system that has a business that can have a second generation to come in.
We've had 3 generations and 4.
Wow.
Yeah, in some cases we've had 4 generations, but right now we have a lot of 2s, but
Mhm.
many 3s as well, 3rd generation
Well, and Kathy,
coming in.
that's
Yeah.
almost a heavy burden for
Yeah.
you, you know, as
Yeah.
president of this company to be putting together a support system. And like you said, a lot of times, especially with 4 generations, they're going to outlast you.
Yes.
How do you kind of think about how you're taking care of and stewarding the brand?
From the next gen
Yeah.
perspective,
Mhm.
well, it is again that communication and that transparency
Mhm.
because in some ways you're going to have some very uncomfortable conversations with
Mhm.
franchisees.
Mhm.
So, we first started with creating, I used my current franchisees to create a profile of what an ideal franchisee is. And I use a third party
Yep.
company so
Mhm.
that we can use evaluations.
Yep.
And there's just data, it's data driven.
Mhm.
And say, okay, here's the path. So creating a path for them. So say, okay, if you really are interested in your kids, coming on
Mhm.
board, this is the path. We have to slow it down and you need to get them ready. And they're not going to be as ready, but we are putting responsibility on the current franchisees
Mhm.
to fill the gaps and
Okay.
teach them. But one of the things that I actually will be doing next month at our national meeting is involving the franchisee. I'm having my own CEO summit for them, and I want them to solve this problem together. And so I'm going to put that out to them and say, we're getting a lot of this right now.
Mhm.
Here's what we have so far. What recommendations do you have?
Mhm.
Because if they're part of the solution as well, then when it's their kids,
That's right. They're ready for it.
they're ready for it.
Mhm.
And so that's really typical of what I do as well. I want them to see the challenges that we're facing.
Mm.
And together, like,
Mhm.
how do we do this, guys? Not everybody's going to be ready. Not everyone's going to be a
Mhm.
fit. We actually, frankly, have some people who, you know,
May not be.
one-on-one
Yeah.
with us say they're not even really interested in this, but their parents are pushing.
Uh,
So the nuances to it. But I
mhm.
think together we can come up with a system here. But because ultimately I am and have had to say no to protect the brand. And that when you talk about protecting the brand, I
Mhm.
have to look at, can this kid
Mhm.
fresh out of college, no work experience, no leadership experience, no sales experience, can they handle this very large
Mhm.
franchise
Mhm.
should something happen to
Yeah.
their parents? And what would the risk be to our entire business? So
Mhm.
I have had to say no or not yet,
Right.
or
Mhm.
conditionally yes, but
Here's the path.
this is a
Yeah.
path. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. Well, Kathy, it's been such a pleasure getting to know you
Thanks.
and having this conversation. You know, I think that what I'm pulling out of it is the collaboration that you bring to your system and the curiosity that you're bringing to the system in regards to collaborating with your franchisees really has set up something of success for you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Such a pleasure talking to you. It's a great
Yes.
conversation.
Well, thank you. Brought to you by my podcast host.